Hi, so in this lecture, I want to talk a little bit about the Kaizen approach at my co-author's health system, which is again the Franciscan St. Francis Health System in Indianapolis. I take no credit for the great work they've done there. It's my co-author, Joe Schwartz, who is their director of business transformation, and with their leadership, and they're great leaders at all levels of the organization. This is what they've accomplished with Kaizen over the last 7 or 8 years. It's pretty remarkable. The culture there and the leadership engagement is great. And there's a lot of lessons that we've thankfully shared in the class and in this program. So first off, here's a picture. They love showing the example of their very first Kaizen that was ever done back in 2007. It was done by Debbie, who was on their housekeeping staff. And you can see before they started typing them up and adding pictures, it's just a simple handwritten form that says before. Coffee filters were getting contaminated and we had to throw some away. After the improvement, the coffee filters remain clean and dry and are not wasted. So the effect was improved environment, cost savings, buying fewer filters. So look at the smile. You see the pride and the engagement. In a classic suggestion box system, someone might look and say, well, hey, who cares? It's just a few coffee filters. It doesn't make that big of a difference. But when we, in a Kaizen approach, implement 90% of our ideas, we build enthusiasm, we build participation. Again, as Masaki Imai talked about in his book Kaizen, it's critical that we engage people and build their excitement because that's what drives them to go do more Kaizen. If we say no to the little stuff, they might stop participating. And then they might not find a big idea that does have a really big impact. So we're looking for this collective benefit of the accumulation of a large number of ideas. It's been over 25,000 over time at Franciscan. So if we look at some of their data, and this is just through 2012, they ramped up the program, spreading it and rolling it out through different departments. And I think there's a great lesson there. You can't just change the culture overnight everywhere all at once. Start with some pilot programs. Get the culture right, get some successes, and then spread this throughout the organization. And they have 3 hospitals in Indianapolis. So you can see they reached a point of about 4,000 implemented and documented Kaizen improvements each and every year. That comes out to about 2 per full-time employee. And they realize that's really just scratching the surface of what they could be accomplishing. If every employee could do 1 per month, that's going to have an even greater impact. And you see here, even after 25,000 improvements, they haven't run out of ideas. They haven't run out of things that can be improved. That's the beauty and the nature of continuous improvement. We have to be comfortable with that. We're not going to fix it all. We're still going to have waste. We're still going to have problems. But if we create this culture where people keep identifying and keep fixing things, we're going to be far better off as a result. One thing they measure at Franciscan is the percentage of employees who participate every year. So they've gotten that up to around 35 to 40%. So you can look at it this way. The employees who are participating are doing 1 per quarter, and then you still have employees that are choosing not to participate. So the role of leaders, and this is what they think about at Franciscan, is not forcing people to participate, but figuring out what can we do as leaders to create that environment where people want to participate. I think that's the healthiest, most sustainable way of looking at this, trying to increase those participation rates in sort of natural and organic ways. Now, Franciscan does go through and add up the financial impact, hard bottom line cost savings, where they reached a peak of almost $2 million a year in 2010. In 2011 and 2012, you can see the financial impact is lower, but they attribute that mostly to just putting less focus into adding up the benefits. You remember in the last chart, the number of improvements didn't decline. It stayed the same at about 4,000 a year. But if they're adding up less benefit, that's fine. They've convinced themselves that Kaizen is the right culture and the right methodology, and that it has a big impact. And in fact, they estimate that this is a gross conservative under measurement of the impact of Kaizen, that there's a multiplier of benefits that are harder to add up or just aren't worth adding up. And again, beyond the cost savings and financial impact, quality, safety, patient experience, all of those things that they're doing because they're the right things to do are also having a very positive impact on the organization. Now, one other thing to point out, this is, I think, an advanced practice. This is not something that you would start with immediately, is that Franciscan has what they call a Kaizen promotion office, or a KPO. It facilitates the details of the program. It doesn't really own it. Kaizen and the responsibility for that is owned by their executive leadership and their leaders at different levels. But they do have people who are responsible for a number of things, and we'll see that in the next slide. The COO is the champion for Kaizen. They have what they call a regional Kaizen coordinator who is dedicated half time to managing the Kaizen program. The manager of business transformation and the director of business transformation, that's Joe Schwartz, they have about a quarter of their time dedicated to KPO activities. So what does the KPO do? They don't go and implement the program. They don't implement every single idea. They teach people what's needed for them to go and create this culture within their departments, within their business units, within their sites, within the health system. So they facilitate Kaizen. They coach. They mentor people. They teach about Kaizen. They do compile and add up and report the metrics. They do some things to coordinate recognition and rewards. And this is an important point. It doesn't have to be all about financial rewards if we're recognizing and thanking people for their involvement. Developing standardized work, doing and delivering that staff education, and then facilitating and teaching people about how to document and track the Kaizens. One thing the KPO has developed and had ownership for is an online database that they use to help people search and have visibility to the different Kaizen improvements that are done at each of those different 3 sites. That is something that now is becoming much more programmatic and part of the culture of the organization instead of being just a limited, isolated practice in a few departments. So we might start with some pilots, but let's go ahead and start thinking about what we might need to do to make Kaizen more programmatic through the organization. So